Good morning. Today we start our topic of circulation. We'll move to this picture real quick. This is a picture of the circulatory system. Isn't that amazing? You can see the heart, the aorta, you can see the microvasculature around the lungs. You can see all the big vessels in the from the waist up. It's really an amazing picture. We'll start with these objectives. First, describe how blood flows through the heart and the lungs. I think some of you have seen the heart in some of your other classes, but we'll just kind of review that. Label a diagram of the major structures of the heart, including the vessels, valves, and the chambers. Then we'll move on to the neural control of the vascular system, and we'll describe the function of the baroreceptors. Then we'll describe how blood volume affects blood pressure, including the following: stroke volume, heart rate, and cardiac output. Then finally, we'll look at the influence of gravity on blood flow, including how it relates to zone 1, zone 2, and zone 3 of the lungs. Zone 1 will be the upper portion, zone 2 will be the middle portion, and zone 3 would be the bottom portion. All right, so you all know that there's atria, that's the top part of your heart, and there's ventricles, which are the bottom parts of your lung, or your heart, You have a right and left of each atria and ventricles. It's a 4-chamber system. Each are separated by a septa, either the intraatrial septa or the intraventricular septa. The heart muscle itself is actually called a myocardium. I will let you view this Prezi on your own time. You can come back and look at that. It just gives an overview of the cardiac system. We'll move on to the pericardium. We'll look at the layers of the heart. It's a double-walled sac. The fibrous pericardium is the outer wall. It's tough, dense, and is a connective tissue layer. The primary function is to protect the heart, anchor the heart to the surrounding structures such as the diaphragm and the great vessels, and also prevent the heart from overfilling. The serous level is a thin, slippery membrane. These next series of slides are all structures of the heart. I would like you to put a star by them because I know you will see these structures again. If you start on the left side of the heart, the very top, you have the superior vena cava, which comes out of the right atrium. It takes all the blood from the uppermost part of your body and brings it back to the filling chamber of the right atria. Again, these are just some structures you will see. This isn't as detailed, but it does show the coronary arteries. Those are the arteries on the outside of the heart that actually supply the heart wall with blood. Next one gives you a good overview of the arteries on the back side of the heart, so you can get a good look at them there. You see the left main coronary artery right in the middle. That's also known as the widowmaker, because if you get a blockage in that big vessel, it does incredible amount of damage to your heart. All right, let's look at the vessels of the cardiac system. We'll start out with your arteries. They deliver O2-rich blood to the capillary bed. They also regulate the volume of flow to each organ on a moment-to-moment basis depending on metabolism. So the arteries are where you feel your pulse points. There's one in your wrist where you take the heartbeat, so that's a pulse point right there. So that's an artery wherever you can of your vessels in your body. You'll see the blood flow on the right with the arteries merging into the arterioles and the capillaries. Then on the left side you see the veins where the blood is going out back to the heart. It's picking up the deoxygenated blood, taking it back to the heart, moving it through the heart, picking up oxygen, and then back over to the arterial side to be delivered to the body. Okay, next we look at this graph that shows the vascular pressures in the different types of vessels we see. Why do you suppose the aorta has the highest pressure of all these vessels? Yes, because it has the biggest job. Yep, it moves all the blood out. That would be your overall blood pressure. When you're looking at blood pressure, that would be the overall pressure it takes for your blood to get. Okay, again, here's another video I will let you watch on your own. This video and the next one show how the blood actually pumps through the heart. So I will let you watch those. This also is a very good video. It shows you that the pulmonary system begins with the pulmonary trunk and ends in the left atrium. The systemic system begins with the aorta and ends in the right atrium. So if you can keep those two things straight, hint, hint, I know you will see that question on an exam. So remember, the pulmonary system begins with the pulmonary trunk and ends in the left atrium, and the systemic system begins with the aorta and ends in the right atrium. As you saw in those videos, there's a series of valves in the heart. There's a tricuspid valve, which we talked about earlier, lies between the right atria and the right ventricle. Remember, it's tri-right, my left. So tri being on the right side is between the atria and the ventricle. The next one is the pulmonary valve. You might hear it called a semilunar valve just because of its shape, but I would like you to call it the pulmonary valve. We move on to the conduction system. This is absolutely amazing how our heart works. It's a series of nodes and conduction system. We'll start with the impulse in the right atrium. It leaves the SA node, that's a sinoatrial node. Okay, that's the main pacemaker of our heart. It's housed in the right atrium, so it travels through the atrium along the back. This next picture is a good representation of the cardiac cycle. It's a sequence of events that occur in one complete beat of the heart. So this happens every time your heart beats. It's the pumping phase of the cycle, also known as systole, and that occurs when the heart muscle contracts. So think of systole as shutting. Okay, shut and systole. That means the heart is contracting. That's how I remember it. Okay, next we move on to the neural control of the vascular system. It's located in the medulla oblongata, and there's a picture on there. You can see where it points to the medulla oblongata. It governs the number of sympathetic impulses sent to the vascular system, and then it regulates your vascular tone from there. You can see the picture on the right of the blood vessels. The baroreceptor reflexes are specialized stretch receptors, and they're located in the walls of the carotid and the aorta. They regulate the blood pressure, and these are the ones that control the pressure through the vessels. So this is the amount of blood flow that goes through the vessels. Okay, so you can take a look at this. Your carotid artery is on the right, stimulates the sympathetic system. Okay, next we talk about systemic and pulmonary pressures. There are two types of pressures that help determine what's your overall blood pressure. First, you have the oncotic or osmotic pressure, and that's the pressure in the interstitial space that exerts pressure on the vessels. And then you have the hydrostatic pressure, which is actually inside the vessel. These are usually equal because you don't want to have leaky vessels. You have to have that oncotic and, oops, I got ahead. There we go. Move on to cardiac output. This is the heart rate times your stroke volume. Okay, the stroke volume is the volume of blood ejected from the ventricle during each contraction. Okay, so you take your heart rate times how much blood is ejected from the ventricle during each contraction, and that gives you your cardiac output. Okay, that's how much blood is leaving the left ventricle per minute. Okay, so it's made. Okay, so if we take a look at this picture, preload is the first determinant of stroke volume. Remember, stroke volume is the amount of blood moved out of the ventricle with each contraction. So one of those determinants to know whether your stroke volume is high, low, or normal is to look at the ventricular preload. It's the myocardial fiber stretch at the end diastole of or the contraction of the ventricle. So third component of stroke volume is the myocardial contractility. So we talked about preload. Preload is the volume side. Afterload was the constriction side, or how much force it takes to get that volume out. Now we look at the contractility. That's the squeeze. It's defined as the force used by the heart muscle to shorten the ventricular fibers for contraction. So myocardial contractility is the squeeze of the heart. It's basically Okay, the final thing we're going to talk about is distribution of the pulmonary blood flow. And this really should be common sense to you. If you have someone sitting up, let's everyone sit up straight. Where is the most blood in your lungs? In an upright lung? Right, it's in the base. Okay, more blood flow in the posterior lobes as you are laying flat. So gravity helps